Before we begin, I want to welcome you to our channel. For those who are new here, our mission is to share genuine Christian testimonies from around the world, spreading the powerful message of God's kingdom. We focus on stories about Jesus, the afterlife, heaven and hell, and other Bible-related topics, bringing them to you in engaging story form twice or 3 times a week. We invite you to become a member of this family by subscribing to our channel. God bless you as you do so. Today's experience was sent to us by a brother. He was addicted to video game, and it ended him with this shocking experience. Kindly stay to the end to full understand his expectation. Hi Daily Renewal. I count it a privilege sending you this. My name is Kabir. I had always loved video games. My fascination began when I was barely 10 years old, when I received my very first gaming console as a birthday gift. I remember the thrill of opening the brightly wrapped box, my eyes widening at the sight of the latest gaming system. It felt like the ultimate prize, and I couldn't wait to plug it in and explore the virtual worlds waiting for me. That was the moment everything changed. What started as a harmless hobby soon became something more powerful, something beyond my control. At first, playing video games was just a way to relax and have fun after school. But gradually, it became an obsession. Every spare moment was spent in front of the screen. I found myself thinking about it constantly, eager to get back to the virtual world where I could escape reality. The games consumed my thoughts, my energy, and my time. I started skipping meals, avoiding chores, and pushing off school assignments just to have more time to play. My friends in the neighborhood would come by to ask if I wanted to hang out, but I always had an excuse. Another level to beat, another mission to complete. Soon, I became isolated from the real world. My relationship with my real-life friends began to crumble. I stopped going outside to play sports with them, choosing instead to remain in my room, controller in hand. They would knock on my door, but I wouldn't answer. It wasn't long before they stopped coming around altogether. My world had shrunk down to a screen and a console, and the few friends I still communicated with were online. These online friendships felt fulfilling at first, but as I would later realize, they were hollow. A facade of connection that did nothing to fill the growing void in my heart. The internet became my refuge, and online gaming communities replaced the friends I'd known for years. These online connections felt real, but in truth, we were all alone in our respective rooms, glued to screens. Our interactions were limited to what the game allowed: strategies, victories, losses, but never anything of substance. I started to believe that as long as I had these virtual friends, I didn't need anyone else. It didn't matter if I was failing in school or losing touch with family. The online world was enough for me, or so I thought. My grades plummeted. Teachers would ask me what had changed, why my once decent scores had dropped so drastically, but I didn't care. The numbers on a report card didn't hold the same value as my in-game achievements. I convinced myself that school wasn't important. The virtual world was where I excelled, where I was important, where I was someone. As time went on, the friends I'd made online introduced me to something darker: pornographic video games. They told me about how exciting and mature these games were, how they could satisfy desires in ways regular games couldn't. At first, I was hesitant, but the curiosity got the better of me. Before long, I found myself playing these explicit games, using them as an outlet to satisfy my growing sexual desires. What began as mere intrigue soon spiraled into addiction. These games were graphic, and the more I played, the more consumed I became by their allure. The games didn't just serve as entertainment anymore. They fueled a deeper, more dangerous addiction. I began masturbating multiple times a day, often 3 to 4 times. It became a compulsion, something I couldn't control even when I wanted to stop. The more I played, the worse it got. I wanted to break free, but it was like I was chained to this addiction. No matter how hard I tried to resist, the urge would come crashing back, stronger than before. I felt trapped in a cycle of sin, unable to escape. I tried to stop many times, but each time I failed. It was as if the addiction had grown roots inside me, and I no longer had the strength to pull them out. The shame, the guilt, it all weighed heavily on me, yet I couldn't break the chains on my own. One Sunday morning, I found myself in church. I wasn't there out of desire but obligation, dragged by a sense of duty to my family. During the praying session before the service began, I bowed my head, trying to go through the motions like everyone else. But then, something unusual happened. Suddenly, I was transported into a vision. I found myself in a dimly lit room filled with countless computers, each occupied by a person from different walks of life. People of all races, ages, and backgrounds. Each one was engrossed in their screen, fingers flying over keyboards and controllers, their eyes fixed on the virtual worlds in front of them. No one looked at the person next to them. It was as if everyone was isolated, alone despite being surrounded by others. The room buzzed with the sound of clicking keys and digital sound effects, yet there was an eerie silence that hung in the air. Then, I noticed something horrifying. Each player had a dark, shadowy figure standing beside them. These figures were demons, and each one held a pen-like object. From this object, the demons produced a strange, thick smoke that the players inhaled deeply. It was as if their very lives depended on it. The smoke seemed to have a controlling effect on the players. They were so focused, so consumed by the game, that they didn't even notice the demons feeding them the smoke. I sensed that the smoke was influencing them somehow, clouding their minds, but I couldn't quite understand how. In the center of the room, above all the players, sat a nearly naked woman on a throne. She had an aura of authority, and her presence dominated the room. She issued commands to the demons with a wave of her hand, like she was their general overseer. The demons obeyed without hesitation, feeding the players more smoke, intensifying their addiction. Suddenly, I saw someone approaching me. As this figure drew near, I felt a powerful presence, one that I instantly recognized. It was Jesus. He didn't need to speak for me to know who he was. His presence filled me with a sense of peace I had never experienced before. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentle, yet full of authority. He held out his hands, and I saw the fresh blood on his palms. Jesus revealed to me that what I was seeing was the spiritual manipulation taking place in the lives of those who loved video games more than they loved God. The smoke the demons were feeding the players wasn't just a metaphor. It was the enemy's way of dulling their spiritual senses, trapping them in a cycle of addiction and distraction. Jesus explained that the devil's strategy was simple but deadly: to kill the great destinies of those consumed by video games. The more they played, the more they neglected their true purpose. The devil's plan was to divert their focus away from God, blinding them to their spiritual potential. Eventually, those who fell into this trap would lose their divine destinies, becoming hollow shells of who they were meant to be, incapable of achieving what God had planned for their lives. He revealed something that sent a chill through my entire body. "The smoke you see," he said, "is not just some illusion. It is the demonic addiction that the enemy uses to bind people in the spirit." I looked around the room once more, taking in the sight of the people, each one still engrossed in their games, oblivious to the demons by their sides. But now, with his words, I began to see more clearly. It wasn't just smoke they were inhaling. It was something far more sinister, something that clouded their minds, that made them dependent. As I focused on the figures at their computers, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Around their wrists and ankles, there were chains, thick, dark chains that snaked down from the demons, binding them tightly. The people, still so lost in their games, didn't seem to realize they were imprisoned. It was as if they had no will of their own anymore, completely under the influence of the demons. I watched in horror as the chains tightened with every breath they took of that smoke. They weren't free. They were being controlled, manipulated to do whatever the devil wanted them to do. It was as though their minds were locked away, and they couldn't even make a choice for themselves anymore. This was how the enemy worked, through addiction, through distractions, through subtle chains that seemed invisible until it was too late. The people were no longer in control of their own lives. The games, the addiction, the demonic influence, it had consumed them completely. Jesus emphasized that just as the demons were relentless in their pursuit of these souls, Christians must be equally fervent in their pursuit of righteousness. There was no room for complacency. If believers didn't rise up and seek spiritual right standing with God, they too could fall prey to the same traps. Immediately he said this, I then came back to myself in the church. After that encounter, the chains of addiction broke by the blood of Jesus, and it's been over 9 months now. I have not engaged in any acts that is contrary to God's desires sexually. I want to say this, parents, including myself, I don't want to exclude myself, that we hold a sacred responsibility to guide and protect our children, not just physically but spiritually. In today's world, where technology is a constant presence, it is more important than ever to watch over what our children consume, whether it's on television, their phones, or the internet. The enemy is subtle, and he often begins his work while they are still young, planting seeds of distraction and temptation through what may seem like harmless entertainment. What they watch, the games they play, and the influences around them can shape their minds and hearts in ways we may not fully realize. The devil uses these things to gain a foothold, distorting their thoughts, desires, and priorities. A child who is left to consume ungodly content without guidance can be slowly led away from their relationship with God. It starts with small compromises but can quickly become a stronghold in their lives. As parents, it is our duty to be vigilant. We must not only monitor the content our children are exposed to, but also engage in conversations with them about the dangers of these influences. Teach them the importance of discernment, so they can recognize when something is pulling them away from God's truth. Encourage a balance in their lives, ensuring that they spend time in God's Word, in prayer, and in fellowship with other believers. The devil seeks to capture hearts while they are still moldable, and once he does, breaking free becomes a great struggle. This is why it is crucial to instill godly values early on, teaching our children to love the things of God more than the fleeting pleasures of this world. Moreover, we must always cover our children in prayer. It is not enough to guide them physically. We must also fight for their souls in the spiritual realm. Pray daily that God will protect their hearts and minds, that He will give them the strength to resist the temptations that come through the things they watch and engage with. In this battle, we cannot afford to be passive. We must be intentional in our parenting, making sure that we are the primary influence in our children's lives, not the world. Let us guard their innocence and teach them to walk in the ways of the Lord, for the enemy is always waiting for an opportunity to lead them astray. But with God's guidance and our diligence, we can raise children who stand strong in their faith, immune to the tactics of the devil. All right, friends, this brings us to end of today's experience. Kindly like and share this video with your friends and families. Kindly subscribe to our channel and turn on your notification bell icon to be the first to get updated anytime we upload a new experience sent to us. Remain blessed.